Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. Thank you for joining us on your Sunday morning or afternoon or evening, wherever it might be, wherever you are, or however it might be, wherever you are. Joining me today in the co-captain's chair, you know her from the Hudson Valley Squares, and it's all about the fuzz, Miss Karen LaPreziosa. What's going on, Karen?
Not a hell of a lot. Looking forward to seeing Geezer this weekend.
That's right.
And what else? I just got back from Desert Fest, which was amazing. And I thought of you frequently while I was there because Brant Bork was there, Monster
Uh,
Magnet was there,
Speaking of
Nick
Brant Bork,
Olberry.
look what just came in.
Woo! Good
So, who,
stuff.
so before we get started here today on, now that you mentioned Desert Fest, before we get started talking about the great Japanese band Church of Misery, who was, in your opinion, the best band you saw at Desert Fest?
Friday night, I didn't go to Thursday night because I had to work. But Friday night definitely was Heavy Temple. Absolutely, they were the
So
best.
good. They're so good.
In my opinion, uh, I did get to see Color Haze, which was great.
Oh, nice.
My boyfriend went on Thursday night and he saw them at St. Vitus, and he said they played a whole different set, and it was much better than Friday. But Saturday, I'm going to sound so predictable, but it was Conan.
Really? Okay.
Conan ruled hard. Like they how do you follow up with that? How? I mean, I just don't know. They were so good and so much better than when I saw them at St. Vitus. Um, there was more people, like more room. I could really get up there, and I really, really felt it. And I'm talking about the Melvins played and Boris played, and still I felt that Conan were the heaviest thing ever. That was my thing. So
Cool.
unpredictable like that.
Well, hey, we all love the bands we love, and hopefully, always the live shows live up to that love that we give them, right? So,
Right on.
very
Yeah.
cool. Speaking of love, there's going to be a lot of love today on this episode. So, I was just telling Karen before we went on the air that this band is a band that I've always known about, but until I started getting to know Karen here on the channel, I never listened to Church of Misery at all. And now that I'm so entrenched in their albums, I'm like, how did this band escape me all these years? Because I love this style of doom so much. And I think they're a fascinating band. For those who don't know, Church of Misery is a Japanese band. They've been around since the late 90s. They've got 7 full-length albums. They got full-length albums. They've got live albums, splits, and collections, and all sorts of stuff. We're just going to do the 7 studio
Singles.
records.
Yeah.
A lot of lineup changes. There's like a main guy, the bass player. He's the constant throughout the whole band's history. But
Tatsu. Yeah.
lots of different guitar players and singers and drummers. But every album still sounds so much like Church of Misery, regardless of who's playing guitar, regardless of who's singing. That's the
Right.
crazy thing. If you didn't know any better and you listen to all these albums, you think it's the same lineup, album to album to album, right?
The only time I really significantly heard a difference was the vocals on, and then there were none. They were cleaner, and I don't think, I think that was an English speaking person singing. I don't know because I don't really check all that stuff
And the
out. But
guy on the new album, who's the original singer, who's back,
right.
he also sounds a little bit different than some of the other guys. He's not as harsh. But yeah, there's subtle differences, but like almost every album has a different singer on it, and most of them all sound exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I like it. Like I like the more Japanese, like their English isn't that great, and it kind of makes me think the lyrics are better than they really are. You know what I'm saying? Like I you hear 1 or 2 words that you really can recognize, but we'll talk about that when we get to the records.
Yeah, yeah. They do sing in English, everybody. So it's
Which is amazing because
yeah.
I mean, Japanese to English, how they even write in English, hats off to them,
Yeah.
so.
So their shtick, just so everybody knows, is their songs and their albums are based on actual historical serial killers. So every song is the lyrics are based on a serial killer in history, regardless of where the serial killer is from, the UK, Japan, US, wherever. And each song is like a little mini story about that serial killer. And oftentimes the songs are interspersed with little news audio snippets from, again, historical news documentation. So you get like this, it's an interesting band, a really interesting listen. And I find them fascinating because there's no one like them. And the music is like Black Sabbath on steroids at times. At times
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
60s and 70s biker rock, but it's all really heavy and all really fascinating. And if you love heavy riffs, you have come to the right program, my friend. So in saying all that, ranking these albums for me was next to impossible because I really love them all. And there's not
Yeah.
much that separates any of them, very little. So for some, like what may be at the bottom of our list might be your favorites. Hell, tomorrow, the ones at the bottom of my list could be my favorites. And so, take it with a grain of salt. I think I'm more excited to just talk about these albums than worrying about where they list in the group of 7. So with all that being said, Karen's
Yeah.
going to kick us off with number 7.
Number 7, I am going to go with, and then there were none. This is my least favorite for a reason, and I don't. It's not that I dislike the album. I just find it too much like Paranoid from Black Sabbath. Do you agree with me there? Do you see that? I mean, the guitar solos are
It's
so
very Iommi-ish, but most of this catalog for me is that way, and I don't mind that at all, obviously.
No, I usually don't mind that, but it leaned a little too heavy for me on Paranoid. Like, I got to put my glasses on here, peeps, because I took notes specifically. River Demon is very much like Fairies Wear Boots to me. And there was a song, where is it? Make Them Die. The intro is very reminiscent of Iron Man. It was too much for me, too much. Like, I can understand this is Doom. This is the kind of music sound Iommi and Black Sabbath forged and invented. But that being said, it was just a little too close. Because I don't know. I feel their other albums were better efforts.
Okay, fair enough. More on that later.
Okay.
Number 7, I struggle with this one, but ultimately I picked the one, and I don't. It's very hard to find. It's almost impossible to find on CD right now, but I think they're going to reissue it. I'm going to go with Volume 1 from 1997, which is their debut album. Although some places you look, they list it as like an EP, but it's like 40 some odd minutes long. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's not that many songs. Also, it was released without their permission.
Yeah. So the
So maybe
band
that's
probably,
why.
the band probably doesn't like to include it. We've included it because it's a full on album. It really is, and it's really good. To me, it's probably their most early Sabbath influenced album. I mean, even to the point where the cover, it's called Volume 1 for a reason, because the cover is basically the same cover as Volume 4 with Ozzy with the peace symbols, except it's a different color.
It
And
is the same.
it's exactly the
Yeah,
same
it's
thing, right?
the
It's
same
crazy.
thing. I don't know how they didn't get like
I
hit
have
for that.
no idea how they got away with this, but yeah, this was originally released on Doom Records. But there's some great stuff on here. I mean, Cloud Bed just crushes. The riff on Nuts is completely nuts. It's so heavy. Kingdom Scum is massively heavy. You got, I mean, these guys, especially the bass player, he uses wah-wah on his bass quite a bit. So there's
Yeah.
color comparisons left and right. Celebrate Pigs is total Iommi worship. Chilly Grave just pummels. Race with the Devil is kind of boogie, but kind of like, if you never thought you'd listen to like boogie doom, go listen to Race with the Devil by Church of Misery. It's a really fun album. To me, it's not quite Church of Misery fully realized yet, I think.
Yes.
But it's still really good. It's still really
right.
good. So that's my number 7, almost by default, but I really like it a lot. So anyway, that's I'll start there, and I'll turn it over to you for number 6.
Well, I'm looking forward to this number 6 because Volume 1 was my number 6, and I think it's cool that we can expand on that a little bit. Cloud Bed. When I heard Cloud Bed, it made me think of some songs that were on the Early Works compilation that we're going to talk about after we finish ranking these albums. To me, Volume 1 sounds a lot like the beginnings of songs that they went and expanded on later on, like Cloud Bed in particular sounds like what, I don't remember what song off of the Early Works compilation, and what else do they have? Oh, and the the cover of Race with the Devil. I think it's great. Church of Misery does a few covers, especially on the Early Works compilation. But to me, I really like that it's like you're racing with the devil through, like, you know when you run in a pool and you really can't move that fast,
Yeah.
or if you're like stuck in mud, it's like the slowest tortoise race ever. There's like no, I mean, it's doom, you know what I'm saying? But it's a good record. It's really raw, and I like it a lot. I do. So that was my number 6.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and Karen mentioned covers. I don't know, I don't remember if it's every single album, but almost every single album they throw at least one cover on there, and it's always like a really obscure, like heavy rock song. And like there were a couple times I'm like, wait a second, I kind of know that. Then I look at the title, I'm like, oh yeah, that's this song. And their covers are really good because they're like they capture the essence of the original song, but they give it that Church of Misery spin, which I think is really, really cool.
That extra.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, my number 6, I'm going to go to 2004, their third album, which is called The Second Coming. I know there's different covers out there.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
one that I have, this is a Rise Above Records re-release or reissue, but this originally came out on Duplanix Records. Never even heard of Duplanix Records.
Right, right.
So here you got a different singer. This guy's, I wrote down a lot of these the names of these guys, and I hope I don't butcher them, but Hideki Fuzazawa. And they also have a new guitarist on this album, which is Takanori Hoshi. And those are the two new guys at the band at the time. I think the vocals on this album are slightly more raw and brutal, but musically speaking, it doesn't sound like any different than the other albums. I Motherfucker is based on Ted Bundy. Okay, probably one of the most notable serial killers of all time. Intense and really heavy. You got Soul Discharge, which is based on the serial killer Mark Essex. I don't know if anybody cares about the serial killers, but I'm going to mention them anyway. That one. And Karen, I'm going to ask you a question I've been waiting to ask you all week. Do you at any time on any of these albums, I'm going to talk about it with Soul Discharge, where based on the vocal style and the grooviness and the heaviness of the riffs, I hear this almost like Down and Pantera kind of thing going on some of their albums. Because I find some of the vocals sound a little bit like Anselmo in spots.
Yeah.
And then the nature of the music obviously sounds like Down. I mean, I hear it quite often in their music. And don't get me wrong, I have no issue with it because I love Down. So I'm just curious if you hear that at all.
No, I didn't. I feel one thing I mean, I really do like Down, but one thing about them that kind of puts me off from really listening to them a lot is the drum sound. So I don't really hear it because I don't listen to Down. So I don't feel like I'm really qualified to say on that.
Okay. For me, I hear it because of the vocal style and the
vocals. Yeah. And I think I love Phil Anselmo's vocals, and yeah, I think I could see that. I definitely could see that.
Okay. So yeah, that reminds me a little bit of that. But then you got Red Ripper Blues, which is all about the serial killer Andre Chikatilo. I have no idea who that is. Half these serial killers I never even heard of before.
He's a twisted dude from Russia. Oh my God.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean, these guys these guys do their research on these serial killers, because I checked out a couple of them and I was like, oh my God, you know. But there's just so many of them. And you know, these guys do a great job of blending like doom and heavy blues and psych, you know, which is really, really cool. Filth Bitch Boogie, which is Eileen Warnos.
How about that intro to that song?
It's so good. It just grinds and bumps, and it's real groovy. The songs are really groovy. Even though the stuff is really heavy, there's got so much heft to these songs. I mean, yeah, really, really good. They do a killer take. You know, when I first heard this, I wasn't looking at song titles. When I first heard the riff, I'm like, no way they're doing a Cactus song. Yes. Yeah. So they do One Way or Another, which is my favorite Cactus song of all time. And I'm like, yeah, I forgot. So good. So good. Yeah. Candyman is another great one. It's based on the serial killer. What's his name? Dean Corey or Coral. I don't know who that is. I mean, the Brontosaurus riffing on that just like kills everything. It's just so good. It is really good. I mean, and the guitar solos are excellent on these albums, by the way. They're just really bluesy, doomy, great. And I really like El Topo, which finishes off the album, which is kind of like this weird marriage of like Sabbath and Hawkwind. Excellent stuff. So heavy. I mean, it's number 6, and I'm saying great things about it. It just shows you the strength of this catalog. I know. Crazy. I'm surprised that one was
so low for you.
All right, so in other words, more on that later from you. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, number 5, the top 5.
Born Under a Mad Sign, their latest release. And I'm pretty much saying that it's number 5 because it's a good, steady record, just like you'd expect from Church of Misery. I listen to it frequently. It's a solid release. My favorite track on that is Most Evil. Like I said, it's and Butcher Baker. It's a little long, that song, but I really, this is what you expect from Church of Misery. And much like there are other bands there that put out really good releases, just like you expect. And this is one of those. I mean, I don't think Church of Misery has a disappointing album, but this one is kind of middle of the pack because it just doesn't really stand out too much for me. But that being said, it's still a really good record, and I like it a lot. And I do listen.
It's still fairly new, right? So you never know,
So
like,
maybe it needs to sink in a little bit more.
That's always tough when we're doing these ranking shows, when the band has a new album out and you do the show a couple of months afterwards. You're like, all right, I really like this album, but I have more history with all these other records. So that's why some people are always like, well, maybe you should wait. It's like, well, you can't wait forever, right? At some point, you just have to do the ranking show. And if they happen to have a new album out, you give it your best shot about where it sits in the ranking based on how you're feeling today. But to Karen's point, she doesn't yet have the history with this album, right?
No, not too much.
Yeah. Same,
but,
I mean, lucky me, I have basically the same history with all these albums.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much, right? So to me, it's all fresh. So I'm like, yes. But yeah, I totally get it. I've done ranking shows before where it's like, I have had all the other ones for years, and then we throw a new one into the mix. It's like, all right, I really like this new one, but can it compare to the first 4 or 5? Not yet.
Yeah.
Right? So it's tough. It's tough.
And like the only way to hear it right now is streaming. And I ordered it months ago, and I ordered it from Steve at Rock Fantasy, and it's still back ordered. And then I went to Vinyl Addiction in Jersey to see if he had it, and he had sold his last copy. So, I mean, I just got to wait. And in the meantime, I'm streaming, and that's that. So
yeah. I'm bummed out. I bought mine when it first came out. I don't remember if I ordered it where, because it's right. So Rise Above Records, by the way, is the label.
Yeah.
Now. I don't remember if did I get it directly from them? Probably not. No, I think I bought it on. I might have gotten it on Amazon or something else. I don't remember. Whatever. I got it somewhere. I jumped on it immediately. I was like, yes, got to get it. All right. My number 5 is going to be, again, how they ever got away with this cover, I have no idea, but Master of Brutality from 2009.
I know.
I mean,
we're Sharon while all this is happening.
I know, right? Sharon would be like, shut it down. You got to change that album cover, right? So I love this statement on the back. It says, we hate trend, we hate corporate attitude, we hate the word stoner, death to false stoners, let there be doom. That's so awesome.
It sure is. It sure is.
It's so awesome. Rise Above Records, second album. And again, well, I have the Rise Above Records, but this was originally released on Southern Lord. Southern Lord, another great label too that releases all sorts of like doom and stoner and hardcore and things like that. So by the time they get to their second album, now all of their songs, or most of their songs, are based on serial killers. All but 2 are based on serial killers on this. And again, you start to hear the little sound clips, the news clips on starting with this album going forward. You got California, which is based on Ed Kemper, so crushing and heavy. And I love the production of this album. It's raw and it's a great sounding record. Ripping Into Pieces, based on Peter Sutcliffe. I don't know who Peter Sutcliffe is, but I love the bass riffs. You got Yoshiaki Negishi is singing on this album. He's got that real raw, throaty voice, which works well. Guitar work is Tomohiro Nishimura. He's great on this album. You got Megalomania, which is based on Herbert Mullen. Real nice bluesy riff. You got Green River, which is this cool little psychedelic instrumental. You got a big doomy cover of Blue Oyster called Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll, which is terrific. So right. And then you got the big epic Master of Brutality title track, which is based on John Wayne Gacy, one of the most notorious serial killers of all time. I mean, just big fuzzed out bass and guitar riffs. This this one's really good. A lot of slow, brutal, doomy stuff on here. A lot of great lead guitar work. It's a great album. It's number 5 for me.
I have to say that one great thing about Church of Misery is they have the best album openers. The best.
Yeah.
I mean, like it just hits you like, whoa, like, I don't know. There's usually, the sound bites, the news, or the actual people themselves who committed these atrocities. And then it's like a punch. It's so good. Really, really good. Yeah. So that opener is killer.
Love it, love it, love it. California.
Yes.
Stuff. All right. What do you got for number 4?
Number 4. This is really tough. I have Thy Kingdom Scum. And that, yeah, this is really hard. It gets harder and harder.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I want to switch up my number 3 and my number 4, but I started with number 4, so we'll keep going with this. The opening song is like another assault, another BTK. It's psych. It goes into a little bit of psych, and you're along from the ride, and then wow, there's that riff that just like whoa wakes you up, and it's so freaking good. Lamb to Slaughter, that song is great. It's got a nice pace. It moves around. Brother Bishop is another great song.
Yeah.
It's the album itself. I think it's faster paced, but it has a lot of boogie. It's like faster paced than, I can't even say normal, because the changes in different parts of all these albums, they have faster songs, like parts of songs, but I'm going to say in general that this album is faster paced, and it moves along nice. I think the time of the songs is perfect, and it's just so great, and the vocals are great. I just love it. The opener though is so intense, and Brother Bishop is a great song. So yeah, BTK is the opener. I don't remember this. I don't remember the name of the song, but it's about BTK.
John Allen Muhammad. Oh no, I'm sorry, we're looking at the wrong album. Never mind. Yeah, that is who is that based on? Dennis Rader.
Dennis Rader, yeah, the BTK killer from, I believe, I don't want to say Seattle, Speak Out of School, because I know there's a lot of serial killer people out there. So you guys put it in the comments,
And that's an interesting one, because that's like it's a song based on a serial killer, but yet it's mostly instrumental. So it's not like they're really telling a story lyrically wise, but
yeah, and a particularly depraved serial killer. I mean, he was really, really evil. And
aren't they all?
Yeah. But this one is yeah, you're right. I mean, what am I saying?
One of the things you mentioned that I do want to hit on. So they mix up their tempos really well.
Right. Yeah.
And most of their songs are like 6, 7, 8 minutes long for the most part. That's pretty typical for them. But like even when they're doing like a slower, doomier dirge of a song, they'll like at like the halfway point, they'll throw in this new tempo, and they'll change like time signature and blast into something else. Kind of reminds me of like and they obviously learned it from the greats, but like when Black Sabbath used to do that on like War Pigs and other songs where are Fairies Wear Boots, where they would take you in one direction and then boom, they just totally throw you a curveball and go in a different, and they do that really well. So none of these songs, even if they're 8 minutes long or whatever, they're never boring at all. You know that something is coming around the corner that's going to kind of change things up a little bit, which I think is terrific for this style.
Yeah, I think it's really great. But that being said, that's why my number 7 is I felt like it was too close to that. I mean, the notes, the riffs were very, very similar. And I understand Paranoid goes, it is my favorite Sabbath album, just for those reasons that you cited, because of the tempo changes and it gets spacey, it's more psych. But at the same time, like, I know what you're listening to, but like that, I don't know. I still like the record. Don't get me wrong. It's really weird. Don't get me wrong. I still really like the record, but that's why I opted for that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and then there were none. I don't even remember the name. All right, so what number are we on now, Pete?
I'm doing number 4. So Born Under a Mad Sign, the latest one. I really like this a lot. And again, I think because I've been listening to this so much over the last couple of months, That's why it's ranking pretty high for me. And when I sat down to do this, I was like, yeah, where am I going to put this? Right.
Right.
Again, most of these albums are fairly new to me, so I don't have any bias here whatsoever.
Mm,
Rise Above Records. Here we got the original singer Kazuhiro
right.
Asada coming back after not being in the band for a million years. You got new guitarist Fumiya Hattori and new drummer Toshiaki Umemura, whatever. So again, complete lineup change other than the bass player, who's excellent, by the way. We'll talk about him in a bit.
Yeah.
Tatsu Mikami. He's so good. He's so good. He's
Hmm.
voiced by the band. So here I noticed like this new singer Asaeda, he's got more of a high pitched vocal style than some of the other guys, which is fine. I think it works well. Musically, nothing strays from the formula on here. And to Karen's point, the first track, Beltway Sniper, is amazing.
Yeah.
It's all about John Allen Muhammad, who Beltway in, I guess, in the DC area was like shooting people from the highway or some shit,
Yeah.
like shooting quite crazy stuff, right? Almost 9 minutes, got some bluesy jamming. There's a good amount of jamming on. I remember the first time you heard
Yeah.
this album, you said to me, like, this is a little more of a psychedelic album. There's a little more jamming going on here. And I absolutely agree with you 100%. I don't really
Yeah.
like it too much. Most Evil, which is about Fritz Harmon. It's almost 10 minutes. It's got some evil, I call them, and I know it's Tyrannosaurus Rex riffs because that's just what it sounds like to me. It's crazy. Spoiler is again, when these guys do covers, they do not pick like songs
No.
you expect. Has anybody watching heard of Haystacks Balboa? They were this really cool, obscure, heavy psych proto metal band from like the late 60s, early 70s. I think they only released one album. I have it. I never would have thought. I'm listening to this song and I'm like, why does this sound familiar? And then I'm looking at the back. I'm like, oh, that explains it. Who else would pick a Haystacks Balboa song to cover? Nobody.
I know.
Nobody. You got
Well,
Murder Castle Blues on here. Come and Get Me Suckers, David Koresh. I mean, I really like this a lot. Butcher Baker is awesome as well, and it's just got some of the heaviest riffs on the album. It's just excellent.
right.
I will agree. There's a little bit more if you like your doom with lots of psychedelic freak out soloing. I think you get a little more of it on this album than most of the others. So if that's your thing, you may want to start with this one. If you like a little less soloing, don't start with this one. So yeah, that's my number 4. The top 3. Here we go. This is ridiculous. In my top 3, I kept switching. I was like, I don't know, whatever.
I know it's really hard. It's so crazy. Top 3. Well, we're going back to Master of Brutality. Um, they do a great cover of Cities on Flames with Rock and Roll.
Yeah, it is really good.
OC.
Yeah.
I really like it. It kind of left me leaving. Why? It's just I just love to hear that song anyway, and it's great to hear Church of Misery do it. So that was really cool. The opener, like you mentioned, is amazing. Megalomania, I really like a lot. It sounds a little bit like Race with the Devil. Do you agree? Like the beginning part of it, it has that kind of solo part to it, like I don't know. Don't make me sing it. And yeah, I don't really know what else to expand on it that you haven't already said. It's a good, solid record, and honestly, I'd like to switch it with that Kingdom Scum because I like now that I think about it. But why bother? I mean, it's all one big tie for the middle.
It doesn't really
What I
matter.
mean?
Yeah, I know.
But it's a great record, and a lot of people cite this one as their favorite.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing out there. Yeah.
Mhm.
I couldn't argue it because, like I said, these were all pretty much equally on the same level
Right.
for the most part. So, yeah, my number 3 is Thy Kingdom Scum, 5th album, 2013. Rise Above Records. Karen mentioned BTK. So good. So good. Lambs to the Slaughter. I mean,
Yes.
I love the heavy grooves on Lambs to the Slaughter.
Oh, big time.
Oh, it's just, one of the cool things about this band is you wouldn't think that like music like this is at all accessible, but some of these songs on some of these albums, they just draw you in and you're moving and you're grinding and bumping. And
Yeah.
like, shit, this is like so much fun. Even though, the vocals sometimes are a little on the harsh side and
Yeah.
the production's raw, but it's just like, man, these guys know how to riff. They know how to riff. Brother Bishop is a great track. That's all about Gary Heidnick.
Love that song. That's one
Ikuma
of those.
Kawabe is the guitar player on this album. I mean, if you go look at, like, go to their Wikipedia page and you look at all their past members, it's like 30 deep. I mean, it's so many people have come and gone from this band. It's just crazy. I really like Cranley Gardens,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like, that's one of the songs that I was talking about earlier, where it starts off one way and morphs into something else. That
Yes.
starts off kind of bluesy, kind of psychedelic, and then like in the midpoint, this big menacing doomy stomp comes in. It's just like, holy cow, like, where'd that come from? At the end, they start jamming. It's awesome. And then how about another great cover? One Blind Mice from Quatermass.
I didn't even know that
That's
was
like, Quatermass is one of the great, like, one and done heavy prog bands from the early 70s. And
right.
they were mainly a keyboard band. So like they
Wow.
Hammond organ, bass and drums, right? And here these guys do, it blew my mind when I heard this. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Right.
I could
Right. I
literally,
didn't even know. I didn't even honestly.
yeah, they're such an obscure band. So I give them so much kudos for that. This is, I normally hate covers albums, but I would pay to hear a covers album from these guys. Even if they want to take all the ones they've already done and throw in a bunch more, because
Yeah.
they pick such obscure songs and they totally give them their own twist. I would totally listen to a covers album from these guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
And the early works has a few too. We'll talk about that
Okay.
later.
Cool. I'm gonna have to get that. So yeah. All right. What
Yeah.
else we got here? I love Dusseldorf Monster, which is all about the German serial killer Peter Kürten. I actually looked him up. I was like, oof. Yeah. And that, what I like about that is that reminds me stylistically of like some of like the long bluesy heavy jams on Black Sabbath's first albums. A lot of
Mhm.
wah-wah solos, a lot of little drum solos, 13 minutes of just kind of psychedelic bluesy jam, and I really like it a lot. So yeah, this is a great album. Love it. I almost ranked this higher. I was like, I just like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I kind of wanted to switch that as my number 3 and put Master Brutality down as my number 4. But I mean, especially now that you're talking about it, it's like, this is the best one. Okay. Number number 2 is number 2, Second Coming. Love that record. I love it. It's I think you can hear the improvement in production on this one.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, you really can. And I love raw production. I have an affinity for it, but this time that
There's your serial killers right there. There they are.
the victims. Yeah. So I mean, this time I think the production really went in their favor. Red Ripper Blues is so bluesy, got that boogie in it like you were talking about. You want to move. It's such a good record. Filth Bitch Boogie. I had to say the title, but what an intro to hear Eileen Warnos cursing them out as they send her to death. I mean, it was so good, and the song itself is amazing. I love the vocals. I find on this album that this vocalist, who I can't even remember because of his name, is so much letters. But I find that I don't want to say all over the place, but he is kind of all over the place, but it's not bad. It's like his vocals change, from minute to minute, I found, especially in that song. The bass is loose, but not sloppy. It just gives you more that bluesy kind of boogie feel to it. And I really, really like it. I enjoy this record. El Topo. Oh my God. It's fuzzy. It's spacey, fuzzy, distorted wall of sound. And if you like that, this seriously is a record for you. I love that spacey stuff. You all know I dig the fuzz, and like that distorted riff is just so good. And like, I don't really think another band out there right now, I could be missing something. I'm not putting up, but I just think Church of Misery does it the best out of everybody. That's my feeling. But hey, I don't know. And I think this album is an excellent example of it, and why they're a great representation of doom metal.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And for those watching who are wondering, it's like, oh, here these two are getting all giddy about songs about serial killers, where we don't condone serial killers and mass murders or anything like that.
And
But
speak for
it's
yourself.
just, it's refreshing, even though it's a horrible subject matter, it's refreshing for a band to do something completely different instead of singing about Satan or singing about Dungeons and Dragons and
Yeah,
singing about World War II and battles and all that kind of stuff. This is just, it's different. And yes, it's horrific. But again, it's part of history, right? It's really all they're doing is they're talking about things that happened in history. However, horrific things for sure, but
right.
it's a little bit different, and I kind of applaud them for doing something a little bit different. So, all right, my number 2 was your number 7. I'm going with "And Then There Were None" from 2016, sixth
Really?
album. Yeah, I really like this a lot.
Wow.
I like this. You know what? You did hit on some interesting things when you were making your points. This album is a little bit different. This is a little bit cleaner sounding,
Yeah.
a little bit bluesier.
Mm-hmm.
I find it a little refreshing in the catalog, though.
Do
Uh,
you?
yeah, and I like it for that. There's some trippy stuff going on here. Like I love the Hellbenders, which is based on the Benders family. That's really cool.
Yes.
That's very psych. Um,
Yes.
and here you got Yasuto Miraki plays guitar on this album, right? Another different guy. Hiroki Takano, his vocals. I made some notes here. No matter who seems to be singing, it all sounds like the same guy for the most part. I
And
love
they
Nathan.
tour with different people too. They don't even keep a lineup to tour.
Yeah, they have, and like I said, if you go to their Wikipedia page, you see all the ex members and then all the live members. So there's like, there's like 50 people who have been in and out of this band, either live or in the studio. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Make them down, make them die slowly, which you mentioned is great. That's based on John George Haight. I don't know who that is, but that's classic doom. Dr. Death, which is based on Harold Shipman, right? That is amazing.
Right.
I love the riff in that song. River Demon is great. Confessions of an Embittered Soul is slow, creepy, doomy. Reminds me of Alice Cooper, circa like the Love It to Death and Killer album. That's why I really like that song a lot. It's got this kind of like early 70s feel to it. So
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
what else? Murder Freak Blues is really cool. I don't know. I really like this album. I like the production. I think it just sounds massive. And my last note on this says it's so hard to rank these albums, and that is true because I could change my mind.
It really is. It really, really is.
I really like this one a lot. So, and I like the fact that they make it look like in stereo. It says it makes it look like a school album. So, in fact, the next one, my number one, both of our number one it does the exact same thing. So let's talk about Houses of the Unholy.
Oh, absolutely. What about that opener, El Padrino?
So good.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Yeah.
When I saw Church of Misery at St. Vitus a few years back, not too long before the pandemic, they opened with El Padrino, and it was so good. It was like such a build up, there was a little spacey. They were playing some weird keyboard, and then that riff came in just as hard as it is on the record. I mean, it's like a punch, and the best way possible. It's just so heavy. I don't know what else to say about this. It's the best opener. It's a good pace. El Padrino, the songs aren't too long, but they're not too short. They're like a good average between 5 and 8-ish, 7-ish minutes. It's not like droning on and on. It's a boogie-ish record. It moves. The Gray Man is crazy heavy with like some nice changes in the songs. How they change that stuff up. I like this guitar player the best, and I love the drum sound. That was my last note on here. Love the drums. Drums are important to me. They really are. To me, they can make a band or break it, make me not want to listen to it. And I love the drum sound on this record. I really, really do. It's so freaking good. As a matter of fact, if you go on YouTube, there is that St. Vitus show that I spoke about, Church of Misery, and you could see it and watch it. It's amazing. It's great. So I recommend it. And then that opener, El Padrino, right out the gate. It's great.
This was, in this whole ranking, this was the only slot that wasn't hard for me.
Yeah, me too.
This was automatically going to be number one.
Yeah.
I was just looking at the players on this album. So there's an American guy in the band. Thomas Sutton plays guitars on this album.
Yes.
Whoever he is, right? But yeah. there's some songs on here that are just so damn good. This had to be number one.
Right.
Still, I've had Born to Raise Hell in my head like all week. Born to Raise Hell. I'm like, so good. To me, Born to Raise Hell is like Motorhead, Sabbath, Down, all thrown into a blender, and bloop, there you go.
Mm.
It's so good. It's so catchy, and it's
I
so
was
heavy.
just going to say that the riffs on this album are so catchy. Like I'm
So
just
good.
now we're talking about it. I'm thinking about El Padrino in my head, just like no, 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 just over and
El
over.
Padrino is so good.
I
It's
know.
almost 9 minutes long. You don't even realize it. It's like
No,
over. You're like,
no.
Blood Sucking Freak is so
Oh,
good. And just so some of the serial killers mentioned on this album: Adolfo de Jesus Costanzo, Richard
oh, that was a
Chase, James Oliver Huberti, which is Shotgun Boogie, which is awesome. Born to Raise Hell is Richard Speck. The Gray Man is Albert Fish.
love that
Um,
song.
and then, of course, we got to have another cover. They do a cover of Master Heartache by Sir Lord Baltimore, one of the greatest early heavy bands from the New York area. And like I said, I was listening to it, I'm like, wait, this kind of sounds familiar. Then that guitar riff kicked in. I'm like, holy shit, they're covering Sir Lord Baltimore. Nobody does
Yeah,
that. Nobody does that.
that's a good idea what you had about putting all their covers and maybe throw some new ones on an album or an EP or something like that.
I'd
Because
buy it.
they do such good songs. I mean, they've got
Yeah.
great taste.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And I love that they pick like songs that you wouldn't expect. They really go obscure with their choice of covers. So it's not, they're not just playing, Sunshine of Your Love and Mississippi
Right.
Queen and everything that everybody plays, right? They're doing stuff that
Mhm.
like, you may or may not know. And then you listen to the album for the first time, you're like, oh, I kind of know that guitar lick or that riff. You're like, wait a second. And then you look at it, you're like, holy shit, that is,
Right,
Sir
right.
Lord
And
Baltimore
speaking of
or whatever.
Mississippi Queen, there are times when I hear a little bit of mountain
Well, yeah.
in that boogie part, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I hear
I
that.
mean, Leslie West was one of the great, I would put, and I always do, I put Leslie up there pretty high as far as like the all-time great riffmeisters
Oh, absolutely.
next to guys like Tony Iommi and Tony Borgia from Budgie and
Right
Jimmy
on.
Page and all those guys, all those original guys. I mean, Leslie was, there's so many heavy mountain songs with some great riffs. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think more people,
Another
I
great
think too
loss.
many people forgot about Mountain. They should really get into them
Yeah,
again.
I certainly don't. I love them. I always
Me
love Mountain.
too.
A very important band, I think. One of the greats from this country.
Oh,
That get
absolutely.
recognized enough. So yeah. So there you have it, everybody. Church of Misery. If you are a Dune fan and somehow, like me, you missed out on this band over the last 2 decades, now is the time to get yourself well acquainted. Gary Joyce, I know you're watching. I'm curious to see how you rank these albums because you were brand new to the catalog as of a couple of weeks ago, and I know I've seen Gary posted every day on various episodes that he's listening to all the albums and trying to get his ranking together.
Oh,
And
cool.
I'm curious to see what Gary thought of all these albums and how he ranks them based on, because our rankings between the two of us were a little bit different, other than the top is exactly the same. But you can't go wrong with any of these. There's not a clunker here. So, Karen, you want to talk a little bit about that kind of archival release that they have?
Oh, early works. Yeah, I think most of that, the originals were pre volume one. I'm not, that's what I read. But my favorite song, Born Under a Bad Sign, Zodiac, that one of my favorite songs is on that record. And they do a lot of great covers. There's a lot of originals, a lot of like songs went on to be on other compilations and splits with other bands. They do a Trouble cover. What else? They do a bunch. They do Indigata Davida, which is like, to me, their only obvious one on there. Who else do they do? They do Trouble. They do Indigata. They have 2 other covers that are great. I'm trying to think. I don't know. My notes are over there. I can't go get them, but it's a really, really good record. And they re-released it a couple times. It's like it's 2 CD set. I think it's not sure if it's 2 or 4 vinyls. Mine's on back order. So I really recommend it. You could find it on YouTube. It's not streaming. You could also find volume 1 on YouTube too. And they're great records. Born Under a Bad Sign is my favorite track off of that. And that's about the Zodiac Killer. So do you have anything to add about it? Because you know me, I freeze up when I
I've never heard it, so I have to go get it. Yeah, I don't have that, so I need to go get it. Now you
yeah,
said
they've
all you
got
need to say to pique my interest. So yeah.
Yeah, they
It's
do a
kind of like, because
trouble.
I've been doing my homework for Electric Wizard. I'm doing Electric Wizard with Ryan Scow in a couple
Oh,
weeks.
you are
Yeah.
good. I can't wait. That's an
So
exciting
they also
one.
have like an early works thing. They have like an early Electric Wizard. I think it's called Early Electric Wizards or something like
Yeah,
that. And it's basically like a lot of recordings from before they actually changed their name to Electric Wizard, but it sounds like Electric Wizard. So it's, yeah. So it's probably a very similar type release. So it's worth seeking out. I think I'm gonna go see if I can get.
yeah. Ryan and I agree a lot about Electric Wizard. So
Aha. Okay, cool.
yeah.
We'll see if he and I agree, right? So again, another band kind of like this that has some really, really good albums. And most people just kind of talk about one of them, but they have quite a few really, really good ones. So yeah,
Right,
that'll
right.
be fun as well.
Mhm.
So cool. For all of you watching, rank these albums as you like them. If you are a fan, if you've never listened to Church of Misery before, I almost said Electric Wizard. No, a couple weeks from now, Pete, get back in gear. Go listen to these records. Let us know what you think. They're all streaming up on YouTube and probably various other places, but most of these you can get on CD fairly
Oh
inexpensive.
yeah. Mhm.
Rise Above has reissued basically all. In fact, I think every one that I have is a Rise Above. As you can tell by the little Rise Above icon at the bottom. These have all been reissued by Rise Above, so they're all available through them. And thanks for watching. We got upcoming here on the channel. Karen and I, in probably about a week and a half, will be bringing you the next episode of It's All About the Fuzz. And for those of you who have been following that show, the topic for this next episode, or basically, and we're going to do this from time to time, is just to bring some new bands, or well, not bring new bands. We're going to come to the show each with 3 recommendations of fuzzy bands, doom, stoner, hard rock,
Like,
acid rock, psych,
yeah,
maybe even
yeah.
prog, fuzzy bands that kind of fall
Right.
into All About the Fuzz, from yesterday, from today, whatever, that might be a little bit more obscure that you guys should go check out. So it's stuff that we like, that we have in our collections, or we've heard that we want to kind of turn everybody onto. So we'll each come with 3 different recommendations. So stay tuned for that. That'll be happening, like I said, in just a little bit. But of course, we got the Hudson Valley Squares coming up on tomorrow. That's right. Today's Sunday. Yes, today is Sunday. Tomorrow, Monday. So yeah. And that will be that was the topic for the Hudson Valley Squares is one that you guys have asked for. So this is albums that most people seem to dislike, but we really dig quite a bit. So I don't want to use that. Steve Keeler says, don't use the hate word. Albums that most people hate, but we love. So I'm not using the hate word. Albums that most people dislike, but we really like a lot. So that's coming up tomorrow on the Hudson Valley Squares. So stay tuned for that. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time.
All the
Please
damn
subscribe if you
time.
haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. And we'll see you next week here. I hope next week is Steve Keeler. Speaking of Mr. Keeler, he and I hopefully will be ranking the catalog of the Gothenburg, Sweden melodic death metal legends, Dark Tranquility. God.
Oh,
So that is hopefully coming up a week from today. If it's not a week from today, it'll be a week or 2 after that. But I think it's next week. I just have to converge with Mr. Keeler, make sure our schedules are aligned. But yeah, that's coming up. So thanks for watching. For Karen LaPreziosa, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good rest of the weekend, everybody. See you tomorrow on HVS. Bye-bye.
bye.